Imagine a world where forgetting a piece of toast in your car doesn't just ruin your breakfast.
Right.
Like, it literally legally alters the grammar of your reality.
Which is just a wild concept to even try to wrap your head around.
It really is.
Yeah.
I want you, the listener, to just hold on to that image for a second. Picture that forgotten slice of bread baking in the summer heat on your dashboard.
Yeah.
And somehow, because of that exact thermal process, the way you conjugate your verbs in a court of law completely shifts.
Your past tense just, dissolves.
Exactly. Your nouns become liquid. I mean, it sounds like an absolute fever dream.
It really does.
But it's actually the foundational premise of this massive, highly contradictory, and honestly, gloriously absurd stack of primary source documents we have sitting in front of us today for this deep dive.
Yeah, and I mean, calling it a stack is almost an understatement. It is an incredibly dense labyrinth of paperwork.
Oh, for sure.
What we are looking at is a collection of files compiled by something called the Office of Procedural Continuity, Bureau of Mundane and Mythic Affairs.
Just the name alone.
Right, mundane and mythic. And these documents serve as the official records of a reality they refer to as the glacintal verse.
The glacintal verse.
Yeah.
Which, when I first started looking through these files, I honestly didn't know what to make of it.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, because we have, like, official court filings sitting right next to military after-action reports.
Yeah.
And then underneath that, there's a literal forensic analysis of seasonal flavors.
Oh, the flavor forensics are incredible.
And holding up this entire stack is a tome that is so physically heavy, it feels dangerous. It's this seemingly infinite database of lore and legal precedent, known simply as the Codex of Maximum Nonsense.
Which is just the perfect title for it. It's an intimidating collection for sure. But the mission for our deep dive today is actually quite focused.
Right.
Our goal is to map out the internal logic of this glacintal verse bureaucracy. We want to figure out how a universe functions when it is governed by, sentient breakfast foods.
Which is a sentence I never thought I'd say out loud.
Same here. And when its military is staffed by politely militant orcs.
Yes.
And most importantly, how society operates when the very rules of communication are dictated by ambient room temperature.
Yeah, because my first instinct when I saw all the contradictions in these files,
Yeah.
and there's so many contradictions,
Endless.
dates that don't match, people
Yeah.
who are simultaneously alive and, like, baked into pastries.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to the pastries.
Right. I just thought, oh, these are mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just a poorly maintained archive. But that is not the case at all, is it?
Not at all. And that is the crucial paradigm shift you have to make when reading these documents.
Okay.
What we would normally call errors in our world, like clerical mistakes, contradictory timelines, overlapping physical realities, they are not treated as problems to be solved in the glacintal verse.
They're not bugs.
Exactly. Instead, this system operates on a foundational principle of administrative hedging. They embrace what the Codex constantly refers to as happy algorithmic accidents.
Happy algorithmic accident.
Yes. In this system, the idea of a singular objective truth is actively overridden by process.
So they don't just tolerate the contradictions, they actually require them.
Yes, they do.
Because the phrase intentional redundancy shows up in the executive summary of document 00007, like over and over again.
Over and over.
They file things in triplicate, but the copies are actually supposed to be inconsistent. It's like they're terrified of being locked into a single version of events.
Precisely. They view contradictions not as bugs in the software of reality, but as vital features of systemic health.
Systemic hell? Wow.
Right. Because a system with only one truth is a fragile system. A system with infinite contradictory truths is indestructible.
Because you can never definitively prove it wrong.
Exactly. So as we walk through these documents today, I want to pose a question directly to you, the listener.
Yeah, keep this in mind.
As you hear about these bizarre rules, what stands out to you? Is it the sheer, unadulterated absurdity of the magic and the breakfast foods? Or is it how suspiciously, uncomfortably similar this all feels to our own modern bureaucracies?
Where the paperwork matters way more than the reality it supposedly describes.
Exactly.
I love that lens for this. Because before we can even get to the literal legal battles happening in their courtrooms or, the military skirmishes over soup kitchens,
Right.
we have to understand the fundamental laws of their reality. Like in our universe, if you drop an apple, gravity pulls it down.
Yeah.
That's a physical law.
Simple physics.
Right. But in the glacintal verse, The laws of physics and the laws of grammar are the exact same thing.
They are completely unified.
And it all begins with the Department of Carbohydrate Phonology.
Which is a brilliant department name. We have to look specifically at a preliminary grammar guide compiled by a researcher named Dr. H.V. Crumsmythe.
Okay.
According to his notes, the primary language of this realm, Glacentil, is spoken almost exclusively by high-viscosity candy canes.
High-viscosity candy canes.
Yes. And certain upper-level administrative bureaucrats.
Of course.
Naturally. And linguistically, the language is classified as morphothermoagglutinative.
Okay, stop right there. Morphothermoagglutinative.
Yeah.
I stared at that word for a solid 5 minutes when I read the brief.
It's a mouthful.
Break that down for us, because I know agglutinative languages in our world exist, right, like Turkish or Japanese.
Yes.
Where you basically glue different word parts and suffixes together like Lego bricks to build meaning.
That's a really great analogy. Agglutinative means you are stacking morphemes or units of meaning onto a root word.
Okay.
But the thermo part is what makes glycosyntol entirely alien to us.
Right, the heat.
In this universe, the glue that holds the language together is literally ambient heat.
That is so wild.
The ontological state of a noun, its very existence, its identity, and how it functions legally in a sentence is completely determined by its thermal environment.
So a word literally changes its fundamental meaning if I, put it in the microwave.
Well, it doesn't just change meaning. It declines into a completely different state of being.
Oh, wow.
Let's look at Table 1.1 in the grammar guide. Noun declensions by temperature.
Yeah, let's go through the scale.
So Dr. Crumsmythe uses the root word pelf as the baseline example.
Pelf.
Yes. Pelf translates to sugar. Now, if that sugar is located in a freezing environment, it takes the frozen declension.
Okay.
You are required to add the suffix glid, so the word becomes pelf glid.
And the anthropological notes say that the glid state represents, quote, total structural integrity, zero compliance.
Which makes perfect sense physically.
It totally does. If a candy cane is frozen solid, it has maximum physical integrity. It is a rock. It isn't going to bend or comply with anything.
Exactly. The physical reality maps perfectly onto the linguistic reality.
Right.
But as the environment warms up, the grammar softens.
Natural.
If you move that pelf glid into the refrigerator, it drops the glid suffix and takes the bur suffix. It becomes pelfbur. And what's fascinating here is the bureaucratic application of this specific state. The documents explicitly note that the fridge declension is the mandated dialect for formal court settings.
Which is such a brilliant, hilarious detail to me.
Isn't it?
Because when we think of a courtroom in our world, we think of a cold, sterile, highly formal environment.
Exactly.
So naturally, the Glacentalverse bureaucracy dictates that you can only conduct legal arguments in the linguistic equivalent of a refrigerator.
You have to keep it chilled.
If you want to file a motion, you literally have to chill your nouns.
It enforces a rigid, stiff formality on the proceedings.
Wow.
But as you step out of the courtroom and into a standard environment, you hit room temperature.
The norm suffix.
Right. The suffix becomes norm. The notes call this the standard pantry dialect.
Pantry dialect.
It's your everyday working class communication, but then we introduce human contact.
Okay, right.
What happens when you pick up that candy cane?
It enters palm temperature. The suffix becomes clam.
Yeah.
C-L-A-M-M. And the context Dr. Crumsmythe provides here is amazing.
It's so visceral.
He writes, noun is beginning to lose boundaries. Sticky. Like, the physical stickiness of a warm candy cane literally translates into a linguistic loss of boundaries.
Yes, the words start to blur.
The words literally start to bleed into each other in a sentence because your hands are warm.
And it accelerates from there. If the noun reaches tongue temperature, it takes the suffix slurp.
To slurp.
The definition provided is that the noun is now in an immediate existential crisis.
Oh my God.
It is aware of its impending dissolution, and the grammar reflects that panic.
It knows it's being eaten.
Exactly.
But those are just the standard physical states, right? Then we get to the truly esoteric, deeply weird declensions.
Yeah, edge cases.
Yeah. My absolute favorite is pocket lint temperature.
Of course.
Suffix, fuzz. And the definition in the grammar guide is incredibly specific. It says, noun is physically bonded to a 2014 nickel.
It is absurdly specific, yes, but it highlights how the Glacentalverse categorizes reality.
Right.
It's not just about abstract heat. It's about the environment that produces that heat. The lint of a pocket is a distinct thermodynamic biome to them.
It's a whole ecosystem. And finally, we reach the apex, the highest possible state of linguistic being in this universe.
Yes.
the forgotten car temperature. Suffix goo. Dr. Crumsmythe describes this as the noun reaching nirvana, or a liquid state.
Which is beautiful in a weird way.
It is, but there's a massive legal asterisk next to this declension. The documents state that the forgotten in-car declension is the only state considered legally binding in Carbohydrate County without a notary.
Which is just a brilliant piece of world building. But if we step back and analyze this mechanical system, it is a profound philosophical statement on the nature of identity.
How so?
Think about human languages. In English, a rock is a rock.
Right.
It's a rock if it's buried in a snowbank, and it's a rock if it's sitting next to a campfire. The noun is immutable. It has a singular truth regardless of context.
It doesn't change what it is.
Exactly. But in Glass Until, the context is the only thing that gives the noun identity. The environment completely dictates what the object is.
So it creates this massive headache for record keeping.
Massive.
Like, the Codex actually has a whole section dedicated to thermojurisprudence, which is the legal crisis of trying to determine the rights of a noun that is occupying two temperatures simultaneously.
Right, the overlapping states.
Like, what happens if I take a candy can that was left in a sweltering car and I immediately throw it into the refrigerator?
You've created a paradox.
A paradox.
Because the outer layers of the candy cane are still in the gooed declension liquid nirvana.
Yeah.
But the core is rapidly approaching the Burr declension formal court setting.
Oh my gosh.
Linguistically, the object is caught between spiritual enlightenment and a legal deposition.
That is, I mean, that's hilarious.
And the bureaucracy has to have a way to process that contradiction.
It's basically Schrodinger's candy cane. But instead of being simultaneously alive and dead, it's simultaneously achieving oneness with the universe and, like, preparing to sue you.
That is exactly what it is.
And if the nouns are this chaotic, the verbs are even worse.
Much worse.
Because the nouns are governed by temperature, but the verbs are governed by saliva.
By mechanical erosion, yes. This was perhaps the most difficult concept to translate from the primary sources.
I bet.
In Glass Until, there is no abstract concept of time.
None at all.
None. They do not have a past tense, a present tense, or a future tense. They only have a concept called the licht.
The lick count. This is the part that genuinely scrambled my brain.
It's very strange.
Explain to the listener how a society functions without a past tense. How do you describe something that already happened?
You can't. Not unless you have physically degraded as a result of that action.
Wow.
The documents break down the conjugation of the verb prifta, which translates to the infinitive, to fight.
To fight.
In our world, you would say, I fought, I am fighting, or I will fight. Time is an arrow that exists outside of you.
Right.
But in Glass Until, you conjugate a fight by how much of your physical body has been eroded away by the friction of the conflict.
So let's walk through the scale because it's wild.
Let's do it.
At 0 licks, you have priftanal. And the translation the guide gives is state of intent. I intend to fight, but am still in the wrapper.
Yes, the pristine state. No action has been taken yet.
Still in the wrapper.
But once contact is made, you enter the first conjugation, 1 to 12 licks. This is known as the scouring.
The scouring.
The verb becomes priftaruf, and the translation is, we are fighting and it is abrasive.
Abrasive. Okay then, if the conflict continues from 13 to 50 licks, you enter a phase called the pointing.
Yes.
The verb conjugates to prifta sharp. And the guide explicitly notes that at this stage, the fight has become structurally dangerous to both parties.
Because mechanical erosion has literally whittled the participants down into weapons.
They are physically sharp now.
Exactly. They are sharp. If the conflict escalates even further, from 51 to 200 licks, we enter the translucence. Cryptoghost. The physical bodies of the combatants have eroded so much that they are thin enough for light to pass through.
They're becoming ghosts.
Quite literally.
And finally, if a conflict goes beyond 500 licks, you reach the vanishing. Priftagon.
The terminal state.
The fight and the fighters have completely dissolved into the saliva of the universe. The action is over because the actors no longer exist.
What the Glass Until verse has done here is tie existential ontology directly to physical consequence.
Yeah.
It completely rejects the idea that you can talk about the past if the past hasn't left a mark on you. The action of the verb is intrinsically linked to the destruction of the speaker.
Let's put this into a human context because it's so wild to think about.
Sure.
Imagine you and I are having a heated argument in a grocery store.
Okay.
If human English worked like Glass Until grammar, the tense of my words would literally depend on how much of my physical body had eroded during the argument. Like, I couldn't say, I told you we needed milk in the past tense unless I was physically translucent and missing half my torso.
You'd have to be a ghost to use that tense.
Right. It forces this brutal, agonizing honesty onto communication.
You cannot fake a past tense if your physical form hasn't paid the toll of the action. It is a system that demands physical proof of time.
But, think about how much our own communication actually does change based on our physical state.
Oh, absolutely.
Like when you're freezing at a bus stop in the middle of January, your sentences naturally get shorter, right?
To get clipped.
Clipped, rigid.
Yeah.
You are practically speaking in that brr fridge declension.
That's a great point.
But when you're relaxed, maybe sitting on a beach, your words flow freely, almost melting into each other like the goo declension.
We experience this naturally.
Yeah, we do. The Glacental verse just took that innate human truth and weaponized it into an inescapable physical law.
And that rigid codification is exactly what sets the stage for the rest of our documents.
Oh, yeah.
Because when the fundamental laws of reality, grammar, time, temperature are this highly regulated but physically mutable,
Right.
the legal system designed to manage them is going to be an absolute nightmare of bureaucracy.
Which brings us perfectly to the second major stack of files in our archive. We are leaving the theory of the grammar guide.
And stepping into practice.
Yes, we are stepping into the practical application. We are going to Carbohydrate County Court.
Yes. We have the complete case file for docket 2026 CT 0147.
The big one.
This is a joint motion for temporary conservatorship. And to put it bluntly, this is a bitter custody battle over breakfast.
I read through these legal briefs, and they're written with the gravity of a Supreme Court decision.
So serious.
But the subject matter is pure delirium. Let's establish the parties involved here. The petitioner, the plaintiff in this case, is registered under the noun pelf.
Which we know means sugar.
Right, sugar. The respondent, the defendant, is registered as crant, which translates to toast.
Sugar and toast. And they are engaged in what the court calls a shkara, which is a deeply entrenched legal dispute. And they're fighting over the custody of their offspring, officially named pelf crant me.
Pelf crant me.
Yeah.
Literally French toast.
Exactly. And the allegations hurled back and forth in these filings are a fascinating study in environmental complaints.
Oh, the mudslinging is incredible.
Sugar's primary argument is that toast provides a, quote, dry and crusty environment that is entirely unsuitable for the emotional and structural development of French toast.
So sugar is basically accusing toast of being emotionally unavailable and rigid.
Yes.
And toast claps right back. Like, in the counterclaim, Toast alleges that sugar is too granulated, lacks cohesion, and is directly responsible for early morning hyperactivity.
It is the most literal carbohydrate-based domestic dispute you could possibly imagine.
It really is.
They are arguing over the physical properties of their existence as metaphors for their parenting styles.
But the real twist, the moment where this court case goes from just a weird custody dispute to a literal international incident, is the motion filed by the child.
Yes, the child speaks up.
French toast doesn't want to live with sugar, and it doesn't want to live with toast. French Toast has hired its own legal counsel.
Which is hilarious.
Right. And has officially filed Paperwork B to seek Moldy cultural citizenship.
Moldy being the Glacental translation for Moldovan?
Yes. French Toast is actively renouncing any culinary connection to France and is demanding to be legally recognized as a citizen of Moldova.
A landlocked country in Eastern Europe.
Right.
The legal argument presented by French Toast's attorney is actually quite sophisticated in its logic, though.
Oh, that the attorney brought the heat.
The brief states that the subject, French toast, is neither purely crystalline, like its parent sugar, nor is it purely charred and arid, like its parent toast.
Okay.
It exists in a soaked, messy, complex middle ground. Therefore, it argues, it shares a profound cultural kinship with Moldova.
Moldova.
A nation famous for its wine, its rich agricultural soil, and its incredibly complex, often messy geopolitical history between larger powers.
Okay, but I have to stop you there. Because out of all the geopolitical entities on Earth, why Moldova? Is this just a desperate play by French Toast to escape the literal frying pan by fleeing to Eastern Europe? Like, what is the strategic advantage here?
It's an indictment of binary categorization.
Binary categorization.
The Carbohydrate County Court operates on rigid classifications. You are either the petitioner or the respondent.
Right.
You are sugar or you are toast. But French toast is a hybrid. It is bread, it is egg, it is sugar, it is the application of heat.
It's all of those things.
It fundamentally defies the binary choices the legal form requires. By claiming Moldovan citizenship, French toast is creating a jurisdictional nightmare to stall the proceedings.
And it works perfectly.
It totally works.
Because the court is completely paralyzed. I was reading the scheduling orders, and the clerk is trying to figure out visitation rights.
Oh, the schedule's a mess.
They are proposing a schedule where sugar gets alternating mornings, toast gets standard afternoons, and the court will mandate joint custody on, quote, room temperature afternoons.
Room temperature afternoons.
How do you even enforce that? Do you have a bailiff checking the thermostat before handing over the child?
The logistics are impossible. But the real bureaucratic blockade comes down to international treaty law.
The treaties, right.
The defense cites the SIRP statutes of 1992.
The SIRP statutes.
According to this statute, a child of mixed breakfast descent cannot be legally deported, relocated, or placed in a frying pan without a written consensus from the Butter Committee.
The Butter Committee.
Yes, a regulatory body that oversees the lubrication and smooth transition of carbohydrate disputes.
The lubrication of disputes.
However, the Butter Committee is currently unavailable to convene.
And why are they unavailable?
Well,
because, according to a panicked memo attached to the brief, the entire Butter Committee has been drafted by the military.
yes.
And they've been deployed as a defensive wall on the northern border. You literally cannot make this up.
It's incredible.
The court needs a signature from Butter to move French toast to Moldova.
Yeah.
But the Butter is currently serving as an active military fortification.
It highlights the exact kind of administrative paralysis we discussed at the beginning.
Right.
The system creates a rule that requires a specific committee, but another branch of the system drafts that committee for war. The process gridlocks.
And you can see the toll this gridlock takes on the court staff. Like, look at footnote 1 on the final page of the filing.
Oh, the clerk's note.
It's a note from the court clerk regarding the official seal on the document. The clerk writes that the filing had to be stamped in 2 temperatures simultaneously.
Right.
Half the stamp is in the frozen declension, and half the stamp is in the forgotten Encarta declension.
Because the clerk's sworn affidavit explains that their pen froze midway through signing the document.
Right.
And in a state of frustration, the pen was lost, and it was subsequently found 3 weeks later in the pocket lint of the county registrar,
The pocket lint?
having reached liquid nirvana in a hot vehicle.
Now, in our world, if a legal document is half frozen and half melted into pocket lint, a judge throws it out.
It's a mistrial immediately.
Exactly. It's a mistrial.
Yeah.
But in the Lacintal-verse,
In the Lacintal-verse, rather than voiding the document, the court officially records it as a procedural anomaly and stamps it as a happy algorithmic accident.
there's that phrase again.
They accept the contradiction. The document is legally binding in 2 contradictory states of reality simultaneously.
It is a hilarious mirror held up to the absurd hurdles of immigration law or even family court in our own lives.
Oh, completely.
Like, how often do people find themselves trapped because a form requires them to check a single box? Are you single or married? Are you employed or unemployed?
Right.
But their reality is a messy, soaked middle ground. You try to explain your complex situation, but the clerk just points at the paper and says, I need a signature from the Butter Committee, and they're at war.
The system doesn't care about the truth. It only cares about the process.
Exactly. But while this domestic dispute over French toast is causing a gridlock in the pantry, the documents reveal that there is a much larger, truly apocalyptic crisis unfolding at the North Pole.
Yes. This is where the scope of the archive suddenly zooms out. We leave the county court and enter the realm of global security.
Global security.
We have a dossier from the Department of Confectionery Integrity, specifically a branch called Culinary Forensics,
Okay.
and they are tracking an international mass extinction event.
A mass extinction event at the North Pole.
The world of Glacentil is facing an existential, invasive threat from a substance identified in the forensic reports as SLAF.
SLAF, which translates to pumpkin spice.
Pumpkin spice. The forensic analysis implicates pumpkin spice in what it terms the ritualistic flavor cannibalization of the candy cane population.
Ritualistic flavor cannibalization. I need you to explain the mechanics of flavor cannibalization here.
It's quite dark.
Because when I read this, it didn't sound like people just preferred pumpkin spice over peppermint. It sounded like pumpkin spice was a biological weapon.
Essentially, it is.
How does a flavor cannibalize another flavor?
The reports describe it as creating a flavor vacuum. Pumpkin spice in this universe is not merely a taste, it is an aggressive, dominant particulate.
Okay.
When it is introduced into a thermodynamic environment, it is so loud, so overwhelmingly robust, that it binds to the sensory receptors of the universe and actively overwrites the thermal signatures of anything subtler than itself.
Oh, wow.
It creates a localized void where other flavors simply cease to register on the spectrum of reality. It doesn't just mask them, it erases their linguistic and physical existence.
So it's literally an apex predator.
It is an apex predator.
And the casualty list in this dossier is devastating.
Mhm.
Like, the report lists several distinct, nuanced cultures of candy canes that are just gone.
Wiped out.
Wintergreen Whisper extinct. Frosted Birch listed as missing in action.
Missing in action.
And a highly experimental hybrid known as Peppermint Bark 2 has been officially declared deceased by the medical examiner.
The loss of these flavors is triggering a cascading geopolitical crisis, and the psychological toll is falling squarely on the head of state at the North Pole. We have a confidential medical advisory report concerning Claus, Santa Claus.
Santa is not doing well, you guys.
Not at all.
The medical evaluation notes that he is exhibiting clinical tremel, which the glossary translates to high-octane vibrating stress.
Vibrating stress.
And the symptoms include the compulsive repetitive checking of his remaining candy cane inventories, and the involuntary manic humming of glass-and-till declensional paradigms in the fridge dialect.
He is a leader watching his cultural ecosystem collapse. The forensic report includes a direct, verbatim quote from Santa's psychiatric evaluation.
Oh, this quote.
And it provides incredible insight into the political fragility of the North Pole right now.
I have the quote right here, and it is incredibly tragic.
It is.
Santa says, quote, "I don't even know what frosted birch tasted like anymore, but it was the only thing keeping the elves from joining the moldy separatist movement. Slath is a monster. It tastes like a candle's midlife crisis."
A candle's midlife crisis. As a piece of culinary criticism, it is devastatingly accurate.
It is the most accurate description of pumpkin spice I've ever heard.
But analytically, this quote connects so many threads. The loss of frosted birch isn't just a loss of a flavor, it's the loss of a political buffer.
Right.
Without it, the elves are radicalizing. And where are they looking for a new identity? The Moldovan separatist movement.
Which ties right back to French toast. The domestic court case is bleeding into the global geopolitical crisis.
Exactly. Everything is connected.
But what really strikes me here is Santa's metaphor. Comparing pumpkin spice to a candle's midlife crisis is so painfully relatable to our world.
Very true.
Like, have you ever walked into a craft store in late September?
Oh, it's overwhelming.
The air is so thick with artificial cinnamon and nutmeg that you can literally taste the desperation.
It is the scent of manufactured nostalgia, and the Glacintalverse is using this as a brilliant commentary on cultural homogenization.
Yeah.
And aggressive seasonal marketing. Pumpkin spice is an imperialistic force here.
It really is.
Think about when a massive corporate coffee chain moves into a quiet, eccentric neighborhood. It's not just opening a store, it alters the ecosystem.
Totally.
Suddenly, the weird little local cafes, the wintergreen whispers of the world, they can't compete with the volume and the marketing budget, and they vanish. The homogenization of flavor mirrors the homogenization of culture.
It's gentrification by cinnamon.
That's exactly what it is.
And the medical board's response to Santa's high-octane stress is peak bureaucracy.
Yeah.
They don't prescribe him therapy.
No.
They don't give him anti-anxiety medication. The official medical recommendation is to administer 400 cc's of liquid French toast.
Meaning French toast that has reached the forgotten in car liquid nirvana state.
Right, and they recommend putting Santa into the witness protection program down in Carbohydrate County.
They are prescribing a completely different legal headache to cure a geopolitical crisis.
Pass the buck.
It is a closed loop of absurdity. You just shuffle the problem to a different department. However, the culinary forensics team did find one loose thread in the extinction event.
Okay, yeah.
One anomaly in the data.
The missing frosted birch candy cane.
Yes.
It wasn't totally extinct, they found one, but they didn't find it in a wrapper or in a pantry.
No. According to the crime scene photos, the last known frosted birch was discovered warm, vibrating with magical energy inside a schliffi, a piece of footwear, and it was actively being used as an oven to bake a krumpa, a pie.
A shoe containing a pie.
Yes.
Which serves as our perfect, bizarre transition into the dark, highly regulated underground world of Glacintalverse magic.
It's a very dark world.
Because you don't just stumble upon a pie baking inside a loafer. That is the calling card of the Morthpelf, the wizards.
The documents provide us with extensive excerpts from a wizarding culinary manual cheerfully titled The Joy of Baking Your Lineage into Footwear.
The joy.
It details the sacred, ancient, and highly disturbing practice of baking an elder of the community into a shoe pie.
Let me just pause here and state for the record, for you, the listener, in case anyone is losing the thread here.
It's a lot.
This is objectively horrific. They are taking their grandfathers, shoving them into boots, and baking them into pastries.
Yes.
It is premeditated, magical violence. But the truly wild thing about the Glacintal verse is that the society isn't horrified by the act itself.
Not at all.
They are only horrified if the act isn't properly notarized.
Exactly. Morality is entirely superseded by procedure. The Wizard Shoe Pie Review Board issues a memo stating that the practice of elder baking is, quote, ethically ambiguous.
Ethically ambiguous.
Therefore, it is permitted, but it requires an extensive stack of consent forms, and these forms must be officially notarized by a certified soup kitchen volunteer.
Okay, I promise we will get to why soup kitchen volunteers hold notary power in a minute, because that introduces an entirely new faction of madness.
It does.
But first, we need to look at how the wizards have reduced this ancient, violent magic into an absurd mathematical formula. Because in a universe governed by bureaucracy, even magic has to show its work.
The manual provides the official formula for a successful ritual. It states that the baking constant is equal to the shoe size, multiplied by the lick count of the presiding wizard,
Okay.
divided by the current atmospheric concentration of pumpkin spice.
The math here is incredible. Baking constant equals shoe size times lick count, divided by slath concentration.
It's very rigorous.
Notice how all the fundamental laws we've discussed so far, the erosion of time by licking, the existential threat of pumpkin spice, they're all mathematically integrated into their spellcasting?
Yes.
But let's run the numbers on this. Say a wizard wears a size 10 shoe. They've been in a minor argument, so their lick count is 20.
Okay.
That's 200. But it's October, so the pumpkin spice concentration is an oppressive 50. 200 divided by 50 is 4. The baking constant is 4. What does a 4 mean?
A baking constant of 4, according to the appendix, means the pie will be legally binding but will taste a bit like regret.
A bit like regret.
But the most important variable in that equation is the shoe size, because the wizards possess a unique ability to override the standard linguistic laws of the universe.
Right.
When a wizard is actively engaged in baking an elder, the normal Glacintal verb conjugation, the whole system of conjugating by lick count,
Yeah.
it is entirely suspended.
They just bypass the saliva laws.
Yes. For the duration of the ritual, wizard verbs are conjugated strictly by their shoe size.
Which leads to the most unhinged grammatical rules I have ever read. Let's look at Appendix D of the manual.
Let's do it.
If the wizard is baking the shoe pie in a size 9 shoe, the suffix applied to all their verbs implies a ceremonial or archaic tone.
It's very traditional.
It's traditional. If they use a size 10 shoe, it's considered standard normative behavior. You're just a regular wizard doing regular elder baking.
Right, but if they use a size 11 shoe, the verb conjugation automatically becomes apologetic.
Apologetic.
The wizard is linguistically forced to express remorse for the size of the pastry.
Oh my.
And if the wizard uses a size 12 shoe or larger, the grammar shifts into a state officially designated as ritualized villainy.
Ritualized villainy.
The verbs become hostile, aggressive, and legally indefensible.
This raises a massive logistical question for me, though.
What's that?
The manual has a bolded warning on page 42. It explicitly states, if the shoe utilized is a sandal, the ritual is immediately voided, and the practitioner must bake a flip-flop tart instead.
A flip-flop tart, yes.
So what kind of bureaucratic wizard is running around enforcing open-toed pastry laws?
Oh!
Is there, like, a magical OSHA inspector checking the breathability of the footwear before the grandfather is baked?
It is the ultimate triumph of process over morality.
Right.
Think about it. How does a society institutionalize the absurd? By regulating the mundane details so heavily that you forget to question the core premise.
That is so true.
They don't ban the horrific act of baking elders into shoes. They merely require the shoe to be the correct closed-toe size. They mandate the specific verb conjugations for the meeting minutes based on that size, and they demand the proper forms.
It is exactly like dealing with a massive corporation or a bloated government agency or a terrible HOA in our world.
Oh, an HOA is a great example.
You can do almost anything, no matter how nonsensical, inefficient, or actively damaging it is, as long as you fill out Form 27B6 correctly and get it stamped by the right department.
Exactly.
The form itself validates the unhinged behavior.
Precisely. In the meeting minutes of the review board, there is a ruling that states minutes recorded in a size 10 conjugation are considered authoritative truth.
Okay.
But if the secretary taking the notes happens to be wearing a size 11 shoe,
The apologetic shoe.
right, the minutes are considered apologetic and therefore legally non-binding.
Wow.
The objective truth of the meeting is dictated entirely by the footwear of the person holding the pen.
I want everyone listening to really think about that. Think about how often in our own lives we accept completely unreasonable situations at work, in politics, in the healthcare system, just because they were presented to us on official letterhead.
Or with the proper procedural framing.
Exactly. We say, well, it's in the employee handbook, or
Yeah.
that's just the policy. The glacenal verse is just saying the quiet part out loud. The policy is the reality.
But of course, you cannot have rogue wizards running around baking grandfathers into size 12 boots without triggering some sort of systemic alarm.
Right. The system fights back.
When magic becomes that hostile and that structurally dangerous, it attracts the attention of the state apparatus, specifically the attention of the human coordinator's unification operations.
And this brings us to the military and enforcement wing of the glacental-verse bureaucracy. We have a set of field orders detailing the execution of something called Directive 7.2.
Directive 7.2 is an overarching mandate issued by the human coordinator to LINTRA, which translates to unify the entire animal kingdom under one cohesive system of polite governance.
Unify the animal kingdom. I mean, it sounds like a Disney movie right up until you read the fine print.
Always read the fine print.
Because there is a very specific, legally codified exclusion to Directive 7.2. The military is ordered to unify everyone except, quote, people that suck.
And we must clarify that in the glacental verse, people that suck is not a subjective colloquial insult.
No, it's not.
It is a rigid legal category adjudicated by a governing body known as the sucking tribunal.
I want to serve on the sucking tribunal. That is my dream job.
I think we all do.
The primary documents actually provide the tribunal's working definition. Legally, people that suck includes two highly specific groups.
Yes.
Group 1, individuals who put orange juice in their cereal instead of milk.
A heinous act of carbohydrate sabotage, certainly.
To be fair, that is a pretty airtight definition.
Yeah.
Like if you put OJ in your cereal, you are beyond unification. You are lost to the darkness.
The tribunal has spoken.
And Group 2, wizards who wear size 12 elder pies. The ritualized villains.
Yeah.
So the state needs a military force to go out and unify the animals, while simultaneously suppressing the cereal saboteurs and the giant-shoed wizards. And the agents tasked with carrying out this operation are the Grunhill.
The orcs.
Now, in almost all fantasy lore, Tolkien, Dungeons and Dragons, video games, orcs are brutal, bloodthirsty, violent warriors.
Standard fantasy trope.
But the glacental verse flips this entirely. The military field manuals describe the Grunhill as a menace of kindness.
A menace of kindness. The orcs are the logistical backbone of the unification effort. They operate soup kitchens across 47 different jurisdictions.
Wait,
These are the same soup kitchen volunteers who hold notary power over the wizard pastries.
oh my gosh, the loop closes.
It does, and their primary weapon is not an axe or a sword. Their primary weapon is mandatory, 100% politeness compliance.
I'm obsessed with the orcs. They are aggressively, violently cheerful.
They are.
The grammar guide notes that when an orc speaks, they are linguistically required to suffix every single verb with a plus, which represents the word please. So a military order from an orc commander sounds like serve plus the soup plus, or flank plus the enemy plus.
It is a localized compliance field of good manners, and it is incredibly effective at breaking the enemy's will.
Because you can't fight it.
Exactly. The after-action reports detail an incident where an uninvited, highly aggressive wizard attempted to interrupt an orc-run soup kitchen to steal a notary stamp. The orcs did not attack him physically. Instead, a squad of orcs surrounded the wizard and hug-plus him until he felt completely seen, validated, and heard.
And the psychological damage of that validation was catastrophic.
It destroyed him.
The report notes that the wizard became so enraged by their relentless, suffocating politeness and his inability to provoke an actual fight that he spontaneously baked his own grandfather into a loafer right there on the spot out of sheer impotent rage.
To which the orcs responded by politely critiquing his technique, gently suggesting that he use plissus more salt plus.
It is psychological warfare, brilliantly disguised as customer service.
That's a perfect way to put it.
It's exactly like trying to cancel your internet service,
Hmm.
and you encounter a retention representative who refuses to let
Yeah.
you go.
Oh, we've all been there.
But they won't stop using your first name and smiling through the phone. Like, they're so aggressively helpful that you eventually just give up and keep the terrible internet.
Because you can't win against that level of polite resistance.
Exactly. Their cheerfulness is a tactical weapon designed to break your spirit.
And this tactical kindness culminates in the major military conflict documented in our archive, the Battle of the Bird Bath,
The Kraka.
or in the Glesentiltung, the Kraka.
Yes, the combatants listed on the battlefield roster for the Kraka are just incredible.
It's a very strange lineup.
On one side, we have an avian coalition consisting of 400 ducks and a specialized flanking unit of robins.
Right.
They are fighting a territorial dispute against a ground force of squirrels.
The squirrels.
Intervening in this chaos is a single, polite, orc soup kitchen volunteer attempting to enforce unification.
Just one orc.
And somewhere in the middle of it all, there is an uninvited wizard who has set up a shoe oven on the battlefield and is trying to bake an elder during the crossfire.
It is a chaotic, tactical scenario, but what stands out in the commander's log is that the conflict was resolved without a single drop of bloodshed.
Wow.
The lone orc deployed a strategic reserve of stale crackers and administered a very stern but polite talking to.
The casualty report is a masterpiece. The only recorded casualties were one squirrel's pride, which was severely damaged,
Tragic.
and 3 high-viscosity candy canes that wandered too close to the combat zone and melted down into the pocket lint declension due to the ambient heat of the dispute.
But as with everything in the Glesintelverse, the physical reality of the battle is secondary to the bureaucratic reality of the battle.
Of course it is.
The truly fascinating part of the Battle of the Bird Bath is the paperwork filed immediately afterward.
Yes. Let's look at the after-action report, official form LIN-1. The Human Coordinator's Office receives the report and officially designates the Battle of the Bird Bath as an epic for historical record-keeping purposes.
By classifying it as an epic, the military secures prestige, medals can be awarded, and the Human Coordinator looks like a triumphant leader who survived a massive, legendary conflict.
So they get the glory. But on the exact same day, they file a secondary report with the municipal insurance company.
Yes.
And in that report, the exact same battle is legally declared a minor skirmish.
Because if it's an epic, the insurance premiums for the soup kitchen would skyrocket.
Naturally.
And the funding streams would be frozen pending a massive audit.
And the document isn't even trying to hide this discrepancy.
Yeah.
Footnote 4 explicitly states, this dual designation is intentional and approved by the Bureau.
They're proud of it.
It is institutional doublespeak elevated to a literal law of physics. It fundamentally does not matter what actually happened at the bird bath with the ducks and the wizard.
The truth is irrelevant.
What matters is that the marketing department gets their epic narrative, and the finance department gets their minor skirmish deductible.
It requires the participants to maintain two completely contradictory realities at the same time, depending entirely on who they are talking to.
Which is something we all do. Think about the necessity of maintaining contradictory narratives in your own professional life.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, have you ever worked on a project that was a total disaster behind the scenes, held together by duct tape and caffeine?
Many times.
But when you put it on your resume, it becomes a massive, game-changing, cross-functional initiative.
Exactly. You spin it.
But then, when you go to your CFO to ask for next year's budget, suddenly that same project was just a low-budget experimental pilot program, so they don't expect you to generate millions in revenue.
You downplay it.
We all curate dual realities to survive this system.
Humans use it as a survival tactic, yes. But the Glesintelverse takes the maintenance of these dual realities to an apocalyptic extreme.
How so?
Well, how does a society record all these contradictory facts on a civilizational scale?
Right.
How do you maintain a legal system where a battle is both an epic and a skirmish, where a noun is both a frozen rock and a puddle of car goo, and where Santa Claus is taking 400 cc's of French toast to stave off a pumpkin spice invasion?
You rely on the ultimate, terrifying, bureaucratic failsafe.
Yes.
Which brings us to the final and definitely the heaviest piece of evidence in our primary sources, the Codex of Maximum Nonsense.
Volume 1 of the Codex is essentially a massive, continually generating log of data. It is the archive that holds the entire society together.
Okay.
And the preamble to the Codex explicitly admits to the existence of contradictory records.
It just admits it.
It states, and I quote, All entries herein are fictional, highly contradictory, and approved by the Department of Pocket Lint as binding precedent.
It just openly says, yeah, this is all made up and none of it matches. And they use this as their legal foundation.
It's their constitution, basically.
I want to read a few of the actual unhinged algorithmic outputs from the source documents. Just listen to the absolute word salad that this bureaucracy considers official legal truth. Here's entry 409.
Okay.
French toast, now krifta, testify that linterpliss tastes like sugar when dipped in pumpkin spice.
If we unpack that, the algorithm is combining the verb for fighting prifta,
Right.
the suffix for polite unification pliss, and the existential threat of pumpkin spice into a single, completely nonsensical testimony from a piece of breakfast food.
Here's another one, entry 812.
Let's hear it.
Santa's stress level increased when Glassintel replaced Pelfkrantmai with pumpkin spice.
Okay.
So in this reality, the language itself just decided to swap out the word for French toast and replace it with pumpkin spice, giving Santa a panic attack.
That's a very stressful algorithmic output.
And my absolute favorite, entry 999. Moratha baked prifta into a peppermint bark too, using the Moldovan Ministry of Culture of Brr. Santa noted this in memo form.
A parent baked a physical fight into an extinct hybrid candy cane using a geopolitical Ministry of Culture that was currently operating in the frigid declension.
And Santa wrote a memo about it.
It is pure hallucinating AI logic.
It really is. It's like feeding 1,000 different legal documents into a language model, cranking the temperature up to maximum, and just accepting whatever fever dream it spits out as the new law of the land.
That's a perfect comparison.
But the most important part of the codex, the part that shows us how this universe actually functions under pressure, is the timeline contradiction notice regarding the Battle of the Birdbath.
The Codex encounters a fatal error in its records regarding the birdbath.
A fatal error.
It states that in Timeline A, the Battle of the Birdbath happened in the year 2026, involving the orcs and the ducks.
Right, what we just talked about.
But in Timeline B, the historical records show that the birdbath was never actually built.
Wait, why?
Because the architect commissioned to design it was ambushed by wizards and baked into a size 9 combat boot in the year 1994.
So we have two mutually exclusive, fundamentally incompatible realities.
Yes.
If the architect was baked into a shoe in 1994, there is no birdbath. If there's no birdbath, there is no battle in 2026.
A paradox.
A normal computer system would crash. A normal court would demand an investigation to find the true timeline. So how does the Codex of Maximum Nonsense resolve it?
The official resolution stamped at the bottom of the notice states, both timelines are concurrently true and remain legally binding until someone licks the clock more than 50 times.
Until someone licks the clock more than 50 times, which, if we remember our grammar rules, means until the situation reaches prifta sharp.
Exactly. Until the conflict becomes structurally dangerous to the timeline itself, the bureaucracy will just maintain both truths.
Wow.
This is the ultimate expression of what the documents call archival redundancy.
Archival redundancy.
In a world that is completely overwhelmed by data, magical permutations, and thermally shifting language, the bureaucracy simply gives up on the concept of finding a single objective truth.
It just surrenders.
It is too much effort and requires too much energy to determine if the birdbath exists or if the architect is a shoe.
It's easier to just say yes to everything.
Precisely. It accepts all permutations, even the AI-generated, algorithmically scrambled nonsense, as equally valid legal precedent. The archive becomes a dumping ground for infinite realities.
So I have to ask, what does this all mean for them and for us?
That's the big question.
Like, is this just a hilarious joke about broken AI systems, or is this the ultimate terrifying evolution of record keeping?
It's a bit of both.
Think about it. If you file everything, literally every possible permutation of an event, even the stuff that makes absolutely zero sense, can you ever be accused of hiding the truth?
No, you can't.
You haven't hidden the truth. You've just buried it in an avalanche of officially sanctioned nonsense. It's security through obscurity, but weaponized on a cosmic scale.
It creates a perfect, impenetrable shield for the bureaucracy.
Impenetrable.
If every contradiction is preserved as a sign of systemic health, then no administrator, no orc, no wizard, and no carbohydrate county judge can ever be held accountable for a lie.
Because it's not a lie.
The lie is just a happy algorithmic accident. It's just an alternate timeline waiting for its lick count to run out. The system becomes untouchable because it claims ownership over every possible version of reality.
Which is unsettlingly relevant.
Very much so.
Consider the modern era we are living in right now, you know. We're surrounded by hallucinating AI models, deepfakes, and massive, incomprehensible data overloads.
We are drowning in data.
We are constantly generating text that sounds official but means absolutely nothing.
Right.
Are we approaching a reality where happy algorithmic accidents become our official public record?
It's entirely possible.
When a generated summary of a legal case hallucinates a fake precedent, and a busy lawyer cites it in a brief, and an overworked judge accepts it, we aren't just reading about the Glacentalverse anymore. We are living in the codex of maximum nonsense.
The Glacentalverse operates as a brilliant satirical mirror. It shows us exactly what happens when the process of recording information becomes completely detached from the reality of the information being recorded.
The process is all that matters.
The form takes total precedence over the function. The paperwork outlives the truth.
Let's try to bring this massive, chaotic journey all together.
Good idea.
We started in a world where grammar literally melts if you leave it in your car on a hot day, and where your past tense is determined by how much saliva has eroded your physical body.
A very messy start.
We moved into a county court system gridlocked by a French toast custody battle, desperately trying to assign Moldovan citizenship based on the whims of a grafted butter committee.
From there, we witnessed the devastating cultural imperialism of pumpkin spice,
Laugh.
creating a flavor vacuum that drove Santa Claus to clinical, vibrating stress. We reviewed the ethically ambiguous, mathematically complex guidelines for wizards baking their elders into closed-toed shoes.
And we observed weaponized, relentlessly polite orcs enforcing 100% good manners, securing dual insurance designations for a birdbath battle that may or may not have even happened because of a 1994 combat boot baking incident.
It's a lot to process.
It is a sheer descent from localized thermodynamic grammar into a sprawling, inescapable legal system governed entirely by algorithmic word salad.
It is exhausting, it is hilarious, and it is meticulously designed to never, ever be solved.
And it leaves us with a lingering, provocative thought. Something we didn't explicitly debate today, but that hangs like a shadow over all of these bizarre documents.
Yes. In the Glacentalverse, when reality contradicts itself, they don't fight it.
Right?
They don't try to find the one true path. They simply blame a happy algorithmic accident, stamp it in two different temperatures, and keep both realities.
Just keep both.
As we rely more and more heavily on automated systems, on predictive texts, and on artificial intelligence to generate our legal contracts, our corporate memos, and our historical documents, how long is it before our official records begin to resemble the codex of maximum nonsense?
When the algorithm inevitably hallucinates a new law in our world or fabricates a historical event that never happened, will we have the presence of mind and the energy to fight it?
Or will we just shrug, accept the happy accident, fill out the triplicate forms, and start conjugating our verbs by shoe size? We might already be in those muddy waters, endlessly searching for a clean truth that no longer exists.
Thank you for joining us on this incredibly dense, wild, deep dive into the Glacentalverse. If any of what we just discussed made logical sense to you, the official bureaucratic guidelines state that you should add a wizard shoe pie to the nearest crumpa and refile your paperwork. Stay safe out there, and remember to keep your candy canes in the fridge.